We learned in the new docu-series about Sherri Papini, Caught in the Lie, that she allegedly was very meticulous, very specific about what she would agree to in her plea agreement. So I want to go ahead and read the plea agreement, and we're going to do that in today's video.
Hey, 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 welcome to the Sofa Squad, sipping from the cup at hey.
I've really been leaning into Thrive Market for some of my household basics, favorites, all that kind of stuff lately. It's been a game changer. Now, if you haven't heard of them yet, Thrive Market is an online membership-based grocery store, okay? They deliver super high quality products straight to your door. All right. You actually save money with every order. Huge plus, okay? Now, another thing I love about them is they are super picky about what they carry. They've already banned like over 1,000 questionable ingredients from their site. You don't have to do the tedious label reading for every single thing because they've already got you covered there, okay? Now, also another thing that's super cool with Thrive is they donate free memberships to families in need. So we're talking teachers, veterans, etc., you name it, right? Basically, for every membership someone buys, they're gonna gift one. And even better than that, which I thought was really cool, they are the first online-only grocery store to accept SNAP and EBT. This makes healthy food so accessible for so many families across the country. Now, huge thing for me also is the ease of shopping, okay? I am curating like a no-brainer, grab and go, don't have to think about it, box of monthly favorites and staples that show up, right? Now, I change it up from time to time. So like I get these for the dogs or whatever, but then I might throw in some little treats for them too, okay? But like these little rice packets here, these rice and beans, y'all absolutely love them. Absolutely go through them. So like these things here, this popcorn plays, right? Loves it, every bit of it. 50 calories per bag, and it's so good. These things just show up. I know that the ingredients have been vetted. I know it's helping other people by doing this, and I'm saving money too, right? It's literally a no-brainer. It's so easy. And Thrive's gonna hook us up. The Sofa Squad, okay? If you join Thrive Market today, you're gonna get 30% off of your first order, plus a free gift, okay? You ain't got nothing to lose. I'll see you at thrivemarket.com. Hello, Sofa Squad, and welcome back to the sofa. There's still a sofa there. And I'm still Paul as far as I know. I hope you're doing well today. If you're new to the channel, like I said, I'm Paul. If you're not new to the channel, like I said, I'm Paul. This is not Groundhog Day. We are going to read through the plea agreement that Sherri Papini did because she was like so big in the documentary about, hey, you know, I didn't want to say this, I didn't want to say that, So I was like, let's revisit this, okay? Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, Sherri Papini just came out with a docuseries called Caught in the Lie. It was an investigative discovery. I watched it on Max. Sherri Papini went missing in California. She went on a jog. She reappeared 20-some days later. She claimed that 2 Hispanic women had kidnapped and tortured her. This lie went on for years until it was discovered that she had really just gone to her ex-boyfriend's house and had him inflict all these damages on her and then drop her back off. This did not go over well with her husband, as you can imagine. So they split. She ended up serving prison time over this lie, and he came out with a docuseries. Now she came out with a docuseries, and I did a big video on it on this channel. Just scroll back to my content if you want to watch that. This video is not meant to do a deep dive on the case, but to specifically look at that plea agreement. So what I'll do is I'll put it up on the screen and we'll just talk about certain aspects of it to kind of go over and just look at it through that lens of knowing what we know now. Now, I'm going to say, I'm going to have to use my glasses for this. I wanted to keep them off just so we could make some eye contact, you know, give it that personal touch, okay? But I'm to the point now where I've got to use these to read. So that's what I'm doing, okay? Okay, so this first screenshot here, the first page of it, if you will, we see United States of America against Sherri Papini. Now, the first thing is just the introduction. And we're going to go over this one because I want to discuss what the charges are and whatnot. So the information in this case charges the defendant with violations, and it lists the number. Mail fraud, counts 1 through 34. Another number, make false statements, count 35. This document contains a complete plea agreement between the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of California, the government, and the defendant regarding this case. The plea agreement is limited to the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of California and cannot bind any other federal, state, or local prosecuting, administrative, or regulatory authorities. Now, B just says, the court not a party, and its station of the court is not a party in this plea agreement. The sentencing is a matter solely within the discretion of the court, and the court may take into consideration any and all facts and circumstances circumstances concerning the criminal activities of defendant, including activities which may not have been charged in the information. Now let's go ahead and jump on down to the next thing here. Defendant's obligations, guilty plea. This is the bottom of page 2. So it says the defendant will plead guilty to count 3, mail fraud in violation of a listed number, and count 35, making false statements in violation of a listed number. The defendant agrees that she is in fact guilty of these charges and that the facts set forth in the factual basis for plea attached hereto as Exhibit A are accurate. The defendant agrees that this plea agreement will be filed with the court and become a part of the record of the case. The defendant understands and agrees that he will not be allowed to withdraw her plea should the court not follow the government's sentencing recommendation. The defendant agrees that the statements made by her in signing this agreement, including the factual admissions set forth in the factual basis, shall be admissible and usable against the defendant by the United States in any subsequent criminal or civil proceedings, even if the defendant fails to enter a guilty plea pursuant to this agreement. The defendant waives any rights under Fed R Crim P 11F and Fed R Ev 410 to the extent that these rules are inconsistent with this paragraph or with this agreement generally. Now, one thing to just pause here and talk about is, on the plea agreement, yes, she's pleading out to this, that, and the other, but also keep in mind, and I'm not trying to say that like I'm trying to, defend her or whatever, but in these agreements, you're trying to wrap this up. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's going to be a certain way. So while I don't believe what she said in the, I don't believe her story on any level, you got to also just read between the lines on some of these things too, but we'll get to see what's even between the lines. So let's keep going. Okay, so now let's jump to the section that says restitution, right? Because that was a big thing in the docuseries. So it says the Mandatory Victim Restitution Act requires the court to order restitution to the victims of certain offenses. Number 1, multi-victim and or multiple counts. Defendant agrees that her conduct is governed by the Mandatory Restitution Act pursuant to it lists the number and agrees to pay the full amount of restitution to all victims affected by this offense, including but not limited to the victims covered in the factual basis, victims covered in those counts to be dismissed or not charged as part of the plea agreement pursuant to and it lists the number. And then after that, and other victims as a result of the defendant's conduct for the offenses charged from the periods of December 2015 through the present day. The amount of restitution will be at least $158,261.75 to the victims listed below. So we have California Victims Compensation Board, at least $30,694.15, and then the United States Social Security Administration, SSA, at least $127,567.60. So pause there for a second. So if you follow this and you'll know, she was sitting here taking money from both of these. They filed disability. I mean, she says it in the thing, right? She filed disability. She was getting money from the Victim Compensation Board. She was even doing things like, I'm triggered by the windows and getting new blinds and stuff like that, like crazy stuff, right? So, these funds are there for true situations like this, right? But in moments of this, I mean, you can see the fraud going on here, okay? So, and not good, not cute, didn't go over well, pretty penny to pay back. So remember in the docuseries, if you watched it toward the end, where she's almost going with this narrative, like blaming Keith, her ex-husband, the guy, the father of her children, the man who went through this with her, stood by her side, all that. So I'll be curious how far she tries to take that. Now, she also is blaming, like as far as the actual event goes of the kidnapping, she's blaming her ex-boyfriend, saying it was not consensual. But with Keith, when she'd made that comment in the docuseries about, well, we did disability, but I can show you here where he was taking all those funds out of my bank account for, mutually shared living expenses and whatnot. So it's like, okay, does that hold any water? Is she trying to lump him in with the fraud? I don't think that's going to work or fly. I don't think she'll pursue it too hardcore because I think she knows that. Okay, so number 2 under that section, non-MVRA type cases. Voluntarily agrees to pay restitution as part of agreement. And it says, in addition, the defendant agrees to pay restitution pursuant to it lists the number in the amount of $151,424.58 to the victims below. Number 1, Shasta County Sheriff's Office, $148,866.23, y'all. Okay, that's crazy. Then the Federal Bureau of Investigation, $2,558.35. Can you imagine? Like, think about the bills you or whatever. Like, so I'm gonna make this up right here. Like, okay, I got the light bill due. Okay, I got, the mortgage, rent, maybe a car bill, maybe some insurance. Oh, I ran the credit card up this month. To sit here and talk about, I gotta cut a check to the FBI this month. The FBI is after me for some cash. The shots to the sheriff's department. I mean, these are major, y'all. And now the FBI is the most reasonable amount, right? Oh, a little under $2,600. Okay, she owes the county sheriff almost $150K. She owes the Social Security almost $128,000. She owes the victim compensation almost $31,000. These are crazy amounts. Crazy amounts. Okay, let's keep going. So beneath that, it just talks about how they're going to, upon the sentencing, it's, okay, you owe this money, right? And a payment plan or whatnot doesn't mean that, that you can just pay the minimum on this or whatever. Like, you owe this money when you plead guilty. Where's the money, honey? It goes even further to say that you can't do bankruptcy and that you agree that you won't do that. And then the last paragraph of that, let's jump to that. It says the defendant shall not sell, encumber, transfer, convey, or otherwise dispose of any of his assets without prior written consent of the United States Attorney, except that the defendant may sell, transfer, or convey personal property, including used vehicles and personal items, but not financial instruments, ownership interest in business entities or real property, with an aggregate value of less than $5,000. Payment of restitution shall be by cashier's or certified check made payable to the clerk of court. So just on that alone, I mean, think about the money that she is trying to make, from the docu-series or this or that. I mean, this is an amount of money, unless she got her wealthy husband to pay it off, like, you're going to be paying that back the rest of your life, right? I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, I would imagine, yes, she probably does want to make some cash on a documentary, right? So anyways, let's keep going. Now on number C, where it says fine, this just talks about how she can, have the argument of, hey, I can't pay, no fine should be imposed, so on and so forth. She's allowed to do this. Now let's jump down to E, where it says, if the defendant violates his plea agreement in any way, withdraws her plea, or tries to withdraw her plea, this plea agreement is voidable at the option of the government. If the government elects to void the agreement based on the defendant's violation, the government will no longer be bound by its representations to the defendant concerning the limits on criminal prosecution and sentencing as set forth herein. The defendant violates the plea agreement by committing any crime or providing or procuring any statement or testimony which is knowingly false, misleading, or material incomplete in any litigation or sentencing process in this case, or engages in any post-plea conduct constituting obstruction of justice, varying from stipulated guidelines, application, or agreements regarding arguments as to 18, it does the code number there, as set forth in this agreement personally or through counsel, also constitutes a violation of the plea agreement. And now it goes on there to say lists these three things off, saying, hey, the government has the right then to prosecute the defendant on any of the counts to which she pleaded, reinstate any counts that may be dismissed pursuant to the plea agreement, and file any new charges that would otherwise be barred by this plea agreement. It says, in addition, 1, all statements made by the defendant to the government or other designated law enforcement agents, or any testimony given by the defendant before a grand jury or other tribunal, whether before or after this plea agreement, shall be admissible in evidence in any criminal, civil, or administrative proceedings hereafter brought against the defendant. And 2, the defendant shall assert no claim under the United States Constitution, any statute, Rule 11F of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, Rule 410, and the Federal Rules of Evidence, or any other federal rule, the statements made by the defendant before or after this plea agreement, or any leads derived therefrom, should be suppressed. So here's the thing, and I wanted to go through those little things right there too, because her talking out and kind of come up with a secondary narrative of this happened, that happened, blah, 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 blah. It makes me wonder, could she get in deeper trouble, for instance, if she's coming out saying, oh, James, the ex-boyfriend, this is not consensual. He was doing A, B, and C. This is not right, blah, 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 blah. Can they come out and say this is illegal outside of like slander, right? And I think once the plea agreement, y'all, if there's somebody credentialed down the comment sections, let me know. But like once the plea agreement's done and signed, I think it's like, okay, you're finished. However, I would question if her obligation to paying money restitution back keeps this open and going outside of like, say she served her sentence of it, if that makes sense. Okay, so now let's go down to section 3 A, dismissals of their charges. And Section 3 is titled the government's obligations. So it says the government agrees to move at the time of sentencing to dismiss without prejudice the remaining counts in the pending information. The government also agrees not to bring any other charges arising from the conduct outlined in the factual basis attached hereto as Exhibit A. Additionally, the government agrees not to bring any charges related to any alleged violations regarding defrauding the United States Social Security Administration related to Social Security disability benefits issued to Sherri Papini based on her supposed, quote, kidnapping from November 2016 up through the date of March 28, 2022. The government agrees to the above so long as this agreement is not voided as set forth herein or as provided in paragraphs ILE, violation of plea agreement by defendant / withdrawal of pleas, VIB stipulations affecting guideline calculation, and VII.B waiver of appeal and collateral attack herein. B, recommendations. 1, incarceration range. The government will recommend that the defendant be sentenced to the low end of the applicable guideline range as determined by the court. 2, acceptance of responsibility. Okay, this is where we're getting into the tea. The government will recommend a 2-level reduction if the offense level is less than 16, or a 3-level reduction if the offense level reaches 16 and the computation of her offense level if the defendant clearly demonstrates acceptance of responsibility for her conduct as defined in USSG 3E1.1. This includes the defendant meeting with and assisting the probation officer in the preparation of the pre-sentence report, being truthful and candid with the probation officer, and not otherwise engaging in conduct that constitutes obstruction of justice within the meaning of, and it lists the number again, either in the preparation of the pre-sentence report or during the sentencing proceeding. So again, this is very big on telling the truth, being accountable, C, use of information for sentencing. The government's free to provide full and accurate information to the court and probation, including answering any inquiries made by the court and or probation and rebutting any inaccurate statements or arguments by the defendant, her attorney, probation, or the court. The defendant also understands and agrees that nothing in this plea agreement bars the government from defending on appeal or collateral review any sentence that the court may impose. So again, with these plea agreements, you got to remember, like, walking in there, the state, the feds, whoever it is, like on that side, they basically have all the power. They're making it up. They've said, you've done A, B, and C. You've agreed to that, whatever the case is. So we're going to go in there. But the court can sit here and say, hey, well, we're going to do boom, boom, boom. Right? So it's a tricky little thing here. It's almost like a wink nod kind of thing in my opinion, but again, I'm not a lawyer or whatever. So also with this, we see this very often where they'll come in and they'll stack all these charges so that then it's like, oh, okay, well, these 2 little things right here for 18 months, I mean, they could put me away for 50 years. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of how these things go in different directions. In a case like this where there's like, the person is completely guilty, right? I mean, she's probably guilty of every single one of these and then some. It makes more sense. You know, my mind often goes to wrongly convicted or somebody who truly has been like railroaded in a scenario where these can go sideways. You have a person like Sherri, who even the 30-some charges, they were probably being lenient with that, right? I mean, look at what she pulled off. So let's jump down to the offenses, what they're saying she did, okay? So Section 4, elements of the offense. At a trial, the government would have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the following elements of the offenses to which the defendant is pleading guilty to. Count 3, mail fraud and violation of a listed number. Number 1, first, the defendant knowingly participated in or devised a scheme or plan to defraud, or a scheme or plan for obtaining money or property by means of false or fraudulent pretenses, representations, or promises or omitted facts. 2, second, the statements made or facts omitted as part of the scheme were material. That is, they had a natural tendency to influence or were capable of influencing a person to part with money or property. 3, third, the defendant acted with the intent to defraud, that is, the intent to deceive and cheat. And 4, fourth, the defendant used or caused to be used the mails to carry out or attempt to carry out an essential part of the scheme. B, count 35, making false statements in violation of, and it lists the number. Number 1, first, the defendant made a false statement. Number 2, second, the false statement was made in a matter within the jurisdiction of an agency or department of the United States. 3. Third, the defendant acted willfully, that is, the defendant acted deliberately and with knowledge both that the statement was untrue and that her conduct was unlawful. And fourth, the statement was material to the activities or decisions of the federal agency. That is, it had a natural tendency to influence or was capable of influencing the agency's decisions or activities. I mean, honey, I don't gotta have no damn credentials to tell you this. Go on and slam the gavel down. Honey, she's guilty. No questions asked. Go on and send her home down the line. Like I said, okay, I like to look at both sides of the fence. These plea agreements, if somebody is, been railroaded into admitting something that they haven't done, whatever, they could be horrible. However, in this case right here, she's lucky they only came out with 35 charges. Because just in one interview with the police, and they tell her multiple times, if you lie, we are 100% giving you a chance right now. If you lie, it is a crime. And she said, hold my beer. Now let me put our little thing, but she made me pull this out. I think it's the first time I've ever pulled this out. I love this thing, by the way. Thank you. 35 charges. She's lucky. And she's lucky. I mean, again, now remember what I'm saying is they came up with 35 charges, but they're only hitting her with the 2. They were doing her a favor. This was international. This was huge, okay? And not a good way huge. Let's keep going. So now let's jump down beneath that to section 5, maximum sentence, A, maximum penalty. And it says the maximum sentence that the court can impose for count 3, mail fraud and violation of listed number, 20 years of incarceration, $250,000 fine, or twice the gross gain or loss, whichever is greater, a 3-year period of supervised release, and a special assessment of $100. The maximum sentence for the next charge for count 35, making false statements, is 5 years of incarceration, $250,000 fine, and a 3-year period of supervised release and a special assessment of $100. So again, remember when you're looking at these numbers right here, 20 years isn't that, and they're talking about 18 months. Where do I sign? Give me the pen. Okay, thank you. Right? So, and I think that that's kind of what she's also alluding to in this. I personally think what we, the public, have seen of this, they did her a favor. She was lucky to get the sentence that she did. Let's keep going. Now, the next thing under that B, violations of supervised release, is just saying, look, you can get in trouble for, don't mess up on probation, right? And they can revoke this. Now, B, stipulations affecting guideline calculation. This just list off how they're coming up with the point systems and whatnot, okay? First of all, like number 1, it says base offense level +7, 2, loss amount +4 for over 15 grand, 3, adjustments +2 for obstruction, acceptance of responsibility, see sections, criminal history, it gets that. Sentencing range number 6, the parties estimate but do not stipulate that the defendant's sentencing range will be 8 to 14 months. The defendant understands that if the criminal history category differs from the party's estimate, her guideline sentencing range may differ than that set forth here. So now let's jump down to section 7, waivers, and it says waiver of constitutional rights. And it says the defendant understands that by pleading guilty, she is waiving the following constitutional rights: to plead not guilty and to persist in that plea if already made, B, to be tried by a jury, C, to be assisted at trial by an attorney who would be appointed if necessary, D, to pursue any affirmative defenses, Fourth Amendment or Fifth Amendment claims, constitutional challenges to the statutes of conviction, and other pretrial motions that have been filed or could be filed. E, to subpoena witnesses to testify on her behalf. F, to confront and cross-examine witnesses against her. And G, not to be compelled to incriminate herself. This almost works, in my opinion, 2 ways for Sherri. Number 1, she's pleading out, so she is waiving all this stuff. This would not be a good look for her if she went to trial with this, because at the base of it, there's so many lies that have been told. I know she's wanted to come out and say it differently now, but imagine if she took this to trial and James got on the stand and you had investigators and all these people digging into all the things that were said and getting receipts, and which they already did to a good degree, right? You see how that would not have ended well deal for her. Oftentimes with things like this, you know you're going to go away for a long time. This is a way better deal, and in her case, it is. Now, B, waiver of appeal and collateral attack, basically goes over, you're giving up your right to appeal, right? You're saying, I'm giving up all this stuff. Okay, so now that we've gotten some of the nuts and bolts out of it and whatnot, I want to just go over that kind of stuff. Let's get down to the factual basis for the pleas, okay? So this is what she is agreeing to. All the legal mumbo jumbo we just went through, but also remember when she was talking about the docuseries, I made sure that they took this word out and they did this and they did that, and it was back and forth. She was like acting like it was like a book agent deal, right? I'm just like, okay. No, I mean, I completely understand in a normal circumstance, you're like, hey, I want to make sure that this says this or that or whatever. But with her, it's just like the amount of lying that went on. It's like she's acting like she's doing them the favor, right? So let's get into it. Okay, so Exhibit A, factual basis for pleas. Defendant Sherri Papini knowingly planned and participated in her own hoax kidnapping and then made material false statements to FBI agents about the circumstances of her disappearance and committed mail fraud based on her hoax kidnapping. As early as December 2015, Papini began communicating with her ex-boyfriend, quote, ex-boyfriend, and eventually communicated her plan to run away from her home and family in Redding, California, and requested ex-boyfriend's assistance. Papini sought to conceal the existence of her communications with ex-boyfriend by using her work phone and later prepaid cellular phones, despite the fact that Papini possessed her own personal cellular phone. Papini instructed ex-boyfriend to purchase prepaid cellular telephones that were not listed in her name, which he did in December 2015 and March 2016. Later, Papini instructed ex-boyfriend when and where to meet her in Redding, California, so that he could pick her up and drive her to ex-boyfriend's residence in Costa Mesa in Southern California. Starting on or around November 1st, 2016, ex-boyfriend drove a rental car to Redding, California, where he waited for further instructions from Papini. On November 2nd, 2016, at approximately 10:57 a.m., Papini used her prepaid cellular phone to send a text message to ex-boyfriend. Around noon that day, Papini left her home in running attire and carrying her regular cellular telephone and the prepaid cellular telephone she had used to communicate with ex-boyfriend. Papini met ex-boyfriend at the location she designated near Sunrise Drive and voluntarily got into the rental car. Before doing so, Papini left her regular cellular telephone on the ground next to strands of her hair. Papini and ex-boyfriend traveled by car to ex-boyfriend's residence in Costa Mesa, California. Papini voluntarily stayed at ex-boyfriend's residence for over 3 weeks until or on about November 23rd or 24th, 2016. During that time, Papini took steps to make it appear as if she had been physically abused. Papini stayed indoors and instructed ex-boyfriend to keep her presence at the house secret. On or about November 23rd and 24th, 2016, Papini and ex-boyfriend drove the rental car from Costa Mesa, California to Northern California. Ex-boyfriend dropped off Papini near Interstate 5 in or around Woodland, California, where Papini was eventually recovered by law enforcement, wearing various bindings to further her false narrative that she had been kidnapped. When interviewed by law enforcement, Papini stated falsely that 2 Hispanic women had abducted her at gunpoint. Papini repeated her false claims that she had been abducted by 2 Hispanic women and provided additional details of her supposed kidnapping during additional interviews and communications with law enforcement officers that occurred between November 2016 and August 2020. These communications included multiple conversations with the FBI sketch artist to create FBI wanted posters based on Papini's descriptions of the 2 Hispanic women she claimed abducted her. On or about August 13th, 2020, Papini was voluntarily interviewed by law enforcement agents, including an agent from the FBI, about her purported kidnapping. At the beginning of the interview, the FBI agent told Papini that it was a crime to lie to federal agents and asked if she understood. Papini shook her head up and down in a yes-like manner, acknowledging she understood. During the interview, Papini discussed details of the purported kidnapping and falsely stated the younger of the 2 kidnappers let her go and was the nicer of the 2, and that the older kidnapper was really abusive and really mean and did all of the really terrible things. When the agents later confronted Papini with evidence that she was not in fact kidnapped, but had instead voluntarily stayed with ex-boyfriend, Papini falsely denied ex-boyfriend's involvement, that ex-boyfriend picked up Papini at her request, and that there was in fact no abduction. The FBI is an agency of the United States and is statutorily authorized to investigate federal crimes, including kidnapping, in violation of, it lists the code number. The August 13th, 2020 interview, during which Papini made the above identified false statements, was part of an ongoing federal investigation into a possible violation of, and it lists the code. Papini's false statements were capable of influencing the FBI's investigative decisions and did in fact influence the investigation by causing the FBI to conduct further investigation after the August 2020 interview to reconcile the differences between Papini's claim that she was kidnapped and the ex-boyfriend's statement that Papini had executed her own plan to run away from her home and stay with him voluntarily. After her return in November 2016, Papini applied to the California Victim Compensation Board, CalVCB, to obtain money based on her claim status as a kidnapping victim, and subsequently received funds to pay for new blinds in her home, ambulance costs incurred upon her return, and therapist costs for alleged anxiety and PTSD from her supposed kidnapping. Papini signed the application to receive CalVCB funds under penalty of perjury. The application signed by Papini contained false statements regarding her supposed kidnapping, including that she had been ordered into a vehicle by two suspects with handguns, that the suspects held her captive for 22 days before releasing her, and that she had attempted to escape several times, and that Papini had fully cooperated with the investigation. The CalVCB would not have approved Papini's application or paid for any benefits if it had known that Papini was not the victim of a kidnapping. Once payment requests for financial assistance were approved by the CalVCB, the California State Controller's Office, CSCO, mailed checks to the designated reimbursement recipient via the U.S. mail. Specifically on or about August 7, 2017, CSCO sent a check to Papini's therapist via the U.S. mail in the amount of $2,997 as payment for Papini's therapy sessions for anxiety and PTSD from her purported kidnapping. Papini was notified of every reimbursement CalVCB made as part of the Victim Assistance Program via detailed statements mailed to Papini's home address. Papini's CalVCB fraud continued until at least March 2021. In total, Papini defrauded the CalVCB of at least $30,694.15. Additionally, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, SCSO, and the FBI expended resources to conduct a nationwide search for Papini during the 22 days she was missing, and then expended additional resources to hunt for Papini's purported abductors based on her continued fraudulent false statements. The SCSO expended approximately $148,866.23, and the FBI expended approximately $2,558.35. Now it's signed here. It says, I, Sherri Papini, have read and carefully reviewed the above Exhibit A, factual basis for plea with my attorney. As far as my own conduct and conduct of which I am aware is concerned, the facts described above are true, and I adopt this factual basis as my own true statement. Okay, so that is it. So first of all, when we get up to the second paragraph here of it, and it's talking about, the ex-boyfriend and this, that, whatever. One thing that jumps out to me about this, and again, remember, she allegedly went back and forth with him and all this type of stuff, and now she's saying she didn't want to say this word, she didn't want to do this, and that, right? She's basically trying to say she was, pressured into this, and she was lying and all this stuff. So whether she's lying or not, so much pre-planning was done on her and the ex-boyfriend's part with this. So the story that he presents, and I'm not trying to sit here and say he's guilty, he's this, he's that, but there's something off with both of their stories, in my unprofessional opinion. I feel like his story is that he was helping a friend out, he was doing this, and I'm sitting here like, y'all weren't doing anything. You didn't think you were going to get back together. You didn't think this or that. And maybe he did because she was manipulating and lying to him, but the whole thing from start to finish, I'm like, there's way more to the story of these two, right? So then where she's sitting here and it's just point blank, boom, 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 boom. This was a hoax. She willingly got in the car. Now, if you remember on the docuseries, they reenacted the car. She has no memory of doing this, nothing at all. And now I wonder if she doesn't want to say that because she doesn't want to lie, because she could get in further trouble. I also feel like it's a moment in the case where if she were to sit here and say, this is how it went down, they could reenact that part and quickly learn it's not true. Because remember, he rented this car, he came up there, she alleges like she doesn't remember, almost like he drugged and knocked her out or something of that flavor. So, okay, like what are we going to do with that, right? Now, also when you jump down here to the voluntarily, huge word. Huge word. And it says here, during that time, Papini took steps to make it appear as if she had been physically abused. Now, remember this whole thing where she was like, I didn't want to say I harmed myself or I did this or because I didn't, or however she said it, right? And it says Papini stayed indoors and instructed ex-boyfriend to keep her present at the house secret. I think it's interesting that she's going toe-to-toe on certain wording and now saying, no, this wasn't consensual. He was doing this, to me. I didn't consent to, get branded and get this, and I don't know why he did this. Like, it was a legitimate kidnapping, right? So if you were legitimately kidnapped, I mean, this would be a horrible thing to read where it's like, oh my gosh, they're basically saying I made it all up and now my abductor is the hero. Nobody would want that, right? The 5th paragraph about the Hispanic woman, I mean, the amount of time that she put into making those drawings up and the characters that she came up with, again, it's the pre-planning for me. Then when they go into the thing, we already talked about this, about the, lying to officers, so on and so forth. I mean, it's all right there. Then again, the next page, the second page of this, where it talks about the money that she used from the California Victim Compensation Board, new blinds, ambulance calls, therapy, lots of therapy. It also sounds to me like, listening to kind of what Keith said, and then some of the other people who knew her, it sounds to me like, and I think Keith was the one who said it, where it was like, yeah, this is during COVID, and so we were all stuck in the house, and it was like she was thriving, like she was loving this. That's what she wanted, for us just to be in this cocoon almost. And I could see that. I really can. So that's all there. I mean, my overall thoughts of reading this is, again, even in this kind of scenario, I think they were being very kind to her. And even if they were willing to work with her on the wording and stuff, I mean, hello, I think she's walking a very dangerous line and trying to come out with almost like this, it's James's fault. And Keith, is doing this and slandering. I don't know what kind of trouble you can get in for that, but I feel like if she pushes too far, especially James, if she's sitting here saying he did this on purpose, I mean, this man's probably able to work up some kind of slanderous suit. Now, the tricky thing will be is if she has something on him, and this is a theory that I've kind of tossed around in my mind, but again, it's just that it's not true. It's not factual. It's just how I keep myself entertained during the day. But I was like, for her to come out full confidence, full chest out, talking about this wasn't consensual, James did this, it's almost like she knows he's not going to say something or do something, and why. So part of me is like, does she have something on him, or does something go on between the two of them? It's almost like, I know he's not going to say anything because it'll get himself in trouble. You know what I mean? Because it is weird to me that he received no kind of charge, even though he's claiming like, oh, it was for a friend, it was for this. You still kind of helped lie, right? And so that part doesn't make sense. Now, maybe he was willing to testify and that's what happened. I don't know. And again, I think on some certain degree, he's probably a victim of hers as well, just from manipulation and whatnot. Anyway, that's it. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below if you're still watching. I do appreciate it. If you could, while you're in that comment section, drop some little sofas off for myself, Rosco and Spirit, who's hiding behind me, Bo and Luke, and you, the Sofa Squad, so we can sit, hang out, talk about Sherri, talk about all these crazy cases we do talk about here at the Sofa Squad. And until we find our way down in the comment section doing all that, I'll see y'all soon. So go ahead, join Thrive Market today. You're going to get 30% off of your first order, plus a free gift. You can't beat that.
I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, video. If you want to follow me and Rosco on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hey, welcome to the Sofa Squad. Sipping from the cup that hey, come laugh with the Sofa Squad. Can't roll my damn eyes hard enough.